Welcome to the Becoming Sound podcast, where we dive into the tough stuff and try to find the humor in the hot mess of being an adult child. Join me as we peel back the layers on growing up in dysfunction, navigating substance abuse, mental health challenges, and everything in between. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Becoming Sound podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Krista, and today we're going to talk about anxiety, and I've been wanting to have this conversation for a while now because I have a personal connection with it. I mean, obviously I've been anxious and stuff like that. Who hasn't? But I do have family members who have anxiety, and sometimes it's hard to know how to support them. And so today, my guest is Caroline Beidler, and she is an author, a speaker, and the managing editor of Recovery.com, a company that combines independent research with expert guidance on addiction and mental health treatment. Caroline works within the recovery community in many aspects, and she's a huge advocate. And I will list all of her resources in the show notes so you can reach out to her afterwards and grab a copy of any number of her books. Her own lived experience in addiction, mental health, and trauma recovery inspires her to help others find and sustain recovery. She is the author of several books, including one that we are going to talk about today called When Anxiety Won't Let Go from Panic to Peace. If you feel like your anxiety follows you like a shadow each day, robbing you of healthy relationships, your self-worth, and of promising opportunities, then you are in the right place today. If you also love someone who has anxiety, but you're not quite sure how to support them, then be sure to stick around to the end because Caroline has so much great wisdom about this, and the conversation is packed with very useful tips. And let's get started. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm really excited about the conversation. We're going to talk about anxiety and the wonderful book that you sent me. I think anxiety is the kind of topic that people try to keep hush, even though at some point or another, we all feel some sort of anxiety. So tell our listeners just a little bit about your story and where you were before all of this.
Well, I think looking back at my life now and just my history with really recovery, I'm all about recovery, but recovery from anxiety, it started so early for me. Like I remember as a kid, even I used to bite my nails like down to the quick, and I had this thing with my hands that I would do sometimes when I was nervous on the line. And I just remember always feeling like I was just on edge. I didn't realize that a lot of what I had experienced early on in my life, a lot of trauma, a lot of adverse childhood experiences and really tough stuff. And also just kind of some of that like stuff that happens, bullying and just some of those things too, which is also very, very challenging and tough. And so I think that not just my mental health was impacted by going through hard things and not having the support that I needed, but my physical health. So for me, the way that I view anxiety, and the research certainly backs this up, is it happens in the body. Like it's a response to something. And so, and that for me started really early on. And I think, fast forward to my teens and then in my 20s, I'm in my mid 40s now, but I started to self-medicate some of that feeling of just wanting to be outside my skin, just that kind of just the nervousness and the racing heart and just some of that just feeling uncomfortable being me. And so I turned into, for me at that time, self-medicated through drugs and alcohol. And that, of course, spiraled out of control very quickly. But I think I was trying to find a way to cope with what was going on with me. And so, and I'm sure we'll get into more later, but yeah, I started, I think really looking back, I can see the signs now. And I think as parents, as caregivers, and folks with our own health and well-being, mental health and well-being, like it's important to think about that, like looking at the signs, and maybe how things started.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think parents see these little signs because I did the same. I chewed my nails. I remember my mom saying, well, I'll give you money if you stop, or I'll give you money if you get, just all those things. But same thing, come from dysfunctional upbringing and alcoholism and stuff. And so we tend to internalize all that stuff. Like, what can you notice in kids that would start to creep up so that you can actually tackle it as a parent?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, part of, why I wrote When Anxiety Won't Let Go, this is a beautiful, by the way, guidebook. And so
Mhm.
the Grit and Grace Project put out this series called Smart Living in Small Bites. And I think, whether it's our own mental health or our children or another loved one, it can feel overwhelming to
Yeah.
like to be looking for the signs or to be like, and I remember I have kids now too. It's like, well, what should I be looking for? What if I miss something? And, um, I think the main thing is just trying to notice how are you or how are your loved ones like showing up,
Mhm.
And like you said, your mom saw early on maybe a red flag or, I know I had teachers kind of point out some of my mannerisms and things that was doing. And I knew that the way that I was showing up, there was something about that clearly showed that I needed support.
Mhm.
But I think just having our eyes open to changes. So, looking back, I wish that someone would have asked me, what happened to me versus I
Mhm.
started to get a lot of, well, like, what's wrong with you? I became like the problem
Right.
child. Something's wrong with you. And I
Yeah.
started then not only feeling really anxious, but then feeling like all this shame around I'm not good enough and something is wrong with me, but not
Yeah.
being able to put a finger on it. So being able to like flip that of like what happened. So being aware of the signs changes and also just being a support to kind of show up and just ask open-ended questions, how are you doing? Is there something you want to share with me? And if not, like, I'm here for you. Those types of ways that we can show up for our loved ones can just go a really long way. So, certainly there's like the DSM-5 and all these diagnostic
Mhm.
criteria that therapists and clinicians can help us really identify some of those uh, things. And then there's ways that we can show up as loved ones who might not have, the background with some of
Yeah.
those more clinical and diagnostic things, but just to be able to show up and notice, what's going on, and then reaching out for help. To
Mhm.
be able to have, there's some amazing assessments, these brief assessments, and you might, I know they do them, I think they do them at primary care checkups, at least in the States right now, where you go
Oh,
in and they
wow.
ask you a series of questions and it's all related to anxiety. And they have
Like
another
they're
one for
asking the kids?
kids and also parents.
What?
And maybe that's not like practice everywhere, but I think the good news around that is there are questions we can ask that can point us to like, hey, maybe we need more help. So,
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I love what you said about just that shift in language when you're speaking with someone and learning that as a parent to help shift the language. And them opening up can be the difference between the words that you use, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and creating that sense of safety, for our
Mhm.
loved ones. And I think for me, my struggle with anxiety and starting that so young, I didn't have a place where I felt safe. I
Yeah.
didn't. There wasn't that place I could rest or that stability. I grew up in an alcoholic home as well, and so it
Mhm.
just always felt very uncertain.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to provide that for like we can do the opposite, which is that is the good news that we can show up in a different way for our kids. So just having
Yeah.
that stable support, being a place that our kids can listen and we can share openly, I think that's really, really important. But
hmm So, what was the moment that you really realized your anxiety was more than just stress? Because obviously, as an adult, this keeps going, right? This escalates into things that like panic attacks and something that you address in your book called GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder.
Mhm.
So, when was it that you knew something else was wrong and it wasn't just stress?
Yeah, so I had been in actually recovery for my substance use disorder for
Mhm.
about 5 years. And had gone back to grad school. And I write about a couple different stories in the book that were kind of these pivotal moments for me where I realized something more was going on. But it was almost this kind of perfect storm of, I feel like my body and my mind were safe enough in my addiction recovery where it was like, okay, the layers are getting peeled back. And it's like, okay, now it's time to really look at how this all started in the first place. And interestingly, I started having like really severe panic attacks. And so my anxiety, what it felt like, and I've described this as moving from something that felt like a mental health related to not just that, but like a physical experience, you know? And for those of us who've experienced a panic attack, I mean, I think the first couple, like I thought I was going to die. You know, I'm calling 911 because I'm like, I'm either having a heart attack or, you know, something, it, what it does to your body, it sends everything in this like fight, flight, freeze response. You know, pick one, like your body just kind of completely is unregulated. And so I was experiencing all sorts of these physical symptoms that again moved it from this kind of mental health challenge, which it still is, of course, but when it moved to this physical place, that for me was kind of this breaking point. And I'm so grateful today to have experienced that. You know, certainly, and I don't make light of it in the book, but there was one instance where I think I was doing like hot yoga or something and just had this like experience and, you know, drove myself to Target, somehow made it to a Target parking lot. Like, I'm like, do I call the ambulance? Do I, you know, but just this feeling of being out of control. And I know what that feels like because I've experienced that as someone who struggles again with addiction. I know what it feels like to feel like something is unmanageable, out of control. And I was like, this is the same kind of feeling. I need help. And so I started seeing a therapist again, and we started talking about medication. And, you know, I'm a person, you know, and however your listeners are showing up, you know, I believe in God, and that has been very helpful for me in my journey of mental health healing and recovery. But I think for a lot of years I had heard like, well, if you just pray more and if you just do this more, or if you just fill in the blank more, right, you should feel better. And that wasn't my experience. And so again, it just added all the shame. So I needed other tools. Like I didn't need someone to throw a Bible verse at me and say, well, you just need to pray more. I needed medication. I needed mental health support. Certainly I needed to learn things in my spiritual journey and my faith journey. But it was like all of these things together, moving me into a place of healing and not just, you know, one of those things. So, but yeah, I go through a couple different experiences in the book that really were those turning points for me.
Yeah, I think it's hard sometimes for people to understand. So even though I grew up in similar circumstances, I coped in different ways. And so anxiety was not one. And I think I was a little anxious and nervous about things, but I had other coping mechanisms. And so the first time I really saw someone have an actual panic attack, I thought they were joking. Like I thought, well, this is blown out of proportion. Like I don't understand how you can think you're having a heart attack and the physical symptoms that present it. And I have a couple of family members who actually have, like, I would say GAD for sure. And to watch them go through that process really opened my eyes to learning about it and understanding what they're actually going through physically so that I can be a support to them, right? When they're in those moments. But yeah, I think there's a lot of shame associated with it because people don't understand, especially if they've never experienced an actual physical attack like that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where that community support and getting support with people who've been through similar things. So one of the reasons I love the Grit and Grace Project, just amazing women that are part of this organization. But there are all different kinds of these books that talk through different experiences. And I think something is so powerful happens when we connect with someone else who has that shared experience. Because
Oh,
I could go
yeah.
to a doctor and say, okay, here's what I had a panic attack, and maybe they'll, give me good counsel and suggest treatment. And I can go to someone who's had a panic attack, and all I would have to say is, this is what happened. And they're just nodding, and me knowing like, hey, you've been there and experienced it. It can be so freeing almost.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started talking about my anxiety, having that sense of freedom because I wasn't the only one struggling with this. There wasn't something quote unquote wrong with me.
Yeah.
I'm not broken because of this like human experience, like
Mhm.
anxiety. And I talk about some stats actually in the back of the book. And I'm
Mhm.
a researcher at heart. I love it, but I'm not going to like nerd out on anyone. You can check out the book, but anxiety is really prevalent,
Yeah.
globally, certainly, in the States where I am, but everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
so many more people now, and maybe it's what the world is like today. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's, fill in the blank, whatever the reason. The point of it is like, we're not alone in our experience. So I think, you know, looking back at the younger me or maybe 20 something me, I wish I would have known that. And so
Mhm.
today it's part of why I'm passionate about talking about mental health, things like anxiety, depression, addiction, because the more that we talk about it, the more that we share, like, hey, you're not alone in your experience. I've been there. Me too. The more people are able to feel like, okay, I'm not alone. And maybe it's okay that I reach out for help. Because it's something that a lot of people struggle with and deal with.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, it's the number one reason why I started this podcast because
Right. Well,
there's something so powerful about when we talk about this openly, and I don't think people talk about anxiety enough. Can you give us some steps someone can take when they do realize that maybe their anxiety is a little deeper, a little stronger than just getting stressed out about something, right?
I think, the best thing that we can do, whether it's anxiety or whatever human struggle we're going through, is to connect with another human being that we trust. So I know for me, a lot of times what that looks like when I'm struggling, even today, I'll admit it. It's not a human being that I trust. Well, where's my phone? It's just some random stranger that I'm looking up online, right? Or
Yeah.
like asking Chat GPT. I'm trying to Google something, but then somehow AI is on my phone, on my Google search, telling me
Yeah.
the top 3 articles on whatever topic, and they're choosing for me. Um,
Right.
I'm not like super anti-tech, but that's a different podcast. That's a different conversation. But I think finding someone, an actual human being that you trust to connect with. So maybe it's your partner, your spouse, a coworker. Maybe you have a
Mhm.
therapist. Maybe it's time to like look for one. But someone that you trust. And if you don't have someone that you trust, I have been there, and I've been through that journey of recovery too, and learning how to trust people, that's when, there are resources available to look for um, possible folks to do therapy or for some type of treatment. And maybe you don't need, an intensive inpatient treatment for your anxiety, but maybe connecting in an outpatient treatment group or maybe
Mhm.
connecting one-on-one with a therapist. Um, my husband jokes, I wear so many hats, but one of my hats I wear is I work for recovery.com. I'm their
Yep.
managing editor, actually. But it's a great resource. I always tell folks, go to recovery.com. You can search by conditions. You can search anxiety,
Oh,
and your
nice.
location. There are resources all over the world, different centers. And so you can find something that a level of care that might match what you're looking for. So I always point people to recovery.com also.
Mhm.
Definitely connect with someone you trust. And then um, understanding, like you mentioned, generalized anxiety disorder. There are points when, like, talking about, okay, this is a struggle I'm going through. And then I remember when I was struggling with having panic attacks, I called someone I trusted, and they were like, okay, take a deep breath, make yourself a cup of tea. And I was like, I want to pour that tea on your head because that is the last thing I want to do is make a cup of tea and take a deep breath. I don't want
Mhm.
your breathing exercises. Like, I feel like I'm going to die. Like, I need help. What do I do? And so understanding that the people around us, they want to help us, they want to show up and
Mhm.
support us. But sometimes, again, that might be moving from having anxious feelings or thoughts to generalized anxiety disorder, which presents in a lot of other symptoms which feel unmanageable, and
Yeah.
out of control. And again, it's okay. It's a very normal thing. Generalized anxiety disorder affects millions of people around the world. But we might just need additional support for
Yeah.
that. And I've found, like, for me, again, therapy, medication, I have a faith community, I have a recovery community. So there's a lot of things in my life that have helped me heal. And
Mhm.
so, anyways, I want to share about that too.
Sure. I have a question, just something that you've said, and I'm curious. So when you're in that state, when you're actually in the middle and you call someone, and obviously you're going to learn who you can call and who you shouldn't, right? Like in that situation. But
I'm not going to call my mom. I love you, mom, but no, chamomile
exactly
tea
right.
is not for me.
Exactly. What actually calms you in that moment? What is something that actually works? And I know it's different for every person, but maybe give us something that if you called that someone and the words that they say made a difference for you, what would that be?
Yeah. Oh, great point. Well, I've been able to, because of medication and because of therapy, I'm in a really healthy place with my
Yeah.
anxiety today. And it will still come up, but I think I've learned the skills and I have the tools today. And so I can recognize when it's like, I got that little bit of flutter starting,
Mhm.
I got that little bit of feeling like I'm floating above my body. I got a little bit of that feeling like that tunnel vision. And so I can stop before it just goes.
Mhm.
And I stop and I try to relax and regulate my body. So I was kind of making the joke about breathing
Yeah.
exercises. They are very helpful.
They
Okay.
are.
They're more helpful if I remind myself I need to do them versus
Yeah.
versus someone else. But one of my favorites is actually the 4-7-7.
Okay.
So people box breathing, you may have
Yeah.
heard of that.
Yeah.
But 4-7-7 breathing is, breathing in for 4 counts, holding for 7,
Mhm.
and then exhaling for 7. And, I'm not a physician, I'm not, but there is something that happens physically, biologically
Mhm.
when we breathe in that pattern. It's just after a count of, I don't know how many of these, like 4-7-7, probably 3, 4, or 5, I can start to feel my body relaxing.
Yeah.
Another thing that is super helpful for me, so I catch early on, I'm so attuned to the signs that I'm headed into an anxious place. The breathing helps if I'm kind of past that and I'm kind of going into the direction where I'm feeling a bit out of control, that it's becoming unmanageable. But then tending to before it gets to that place. And then, if it does, that's when I decide, like, okay, maybe I need to talk to my therapist. Maybe I need to talk about, how my medication's working with my prescriber.
Mhm.
But before that, and I think this is why I'm just so grateful I'm in the place that I am today, is I have built rhythms in my life. I call them recovery rhythms. It's not trademarked. Anybody can call them that. Um, but I have these rhythms in my life that help me tend to my physical body and my mental health.
Mhm.
You know, walking, reading. I've just started one. I got Instagram and Facebook off my phone. I'm telling you, it's been a life changer. Um, connecting in person. I do a lot of things digitally. So connecting in
Mhm.
person a set amount of times per week, so I have these rhythms that I think have just built this like protective factor
Yeah.
around my life. And so I think if someone's listening right now and they're like, oh, this breathing, there she goes with the breathing exercise. Um,
Yeah.
I just want to encourage people, like, as we do these things and build, we are actually retraining and rewiring our very malleable brain, which is just an incredible thing.
Mhm.
Um, we are kind of recreating pathways in our brain that help us to be able to like become new in the sense of like we can start to heal from those old pathways and patterns. Our bodies
Yeah.
and our minds don't respond in the same way over time. I just want people to feel encouraged. Like, if you're struggling right now with anxiety and it feels unmanageable, you do not have to live like this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be like this. I think we forget that sometimes, especially I have when I've been really deep into like the seasons of panic attacks and being in a really tough place. So anyways, I hope that's encouraging to folks because I just want to make sure people remember that it doesn't always have to be this way.
Yeah.
You may have struggled with anxiety. You may have that diagnostic label that you have generalized anxiety disorder like I do. Um, but it doesn't mean that your life, has to stay the way it is today.
Yeah. I think that's so important what you said about that it doesn't have to be this way. Because I think we forget and we tell ourselves this story inside of our head sometimes that this is just the way I am. Or this is just
Mhm.
who I am, and you've really anchored to a lot of that programming and those pathways that have been built,
Mhm.
but what we don't realize all the time is they are changeable. So
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
true.
100%. I love the book. I love how it's laid out because there are steps to take. There's areas to journal and
Mhm.
stuff that you can put to use right then with that little passage. And I'm definitely
Mm.
going to give it to somebody I love that I know struggles with this because I think it's a great first step in trying to understand yourself and maybe understand anxiety a little better.
I'm
I
looking at my
don't.
cute little it is
I
so
know.
beautiful. It's a sweet little book. Like you
I
mentioned, there's some amazing journal,
yeah.
like places to journal. And that for me has been really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Just journaling and showing up I'm trying to journal every day again, but showing up with a pen and paper, maybe like your notes app or a computer. But to be able to do that really helps us kind of, um, I think, figure out a little bit more of what's going on in our mind.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I agree. And it's a great place to start, especially if someone's afraid to reach out for help. Grabbing a book and just starting there even can be such a huge step in the right direction.
yeah. And the more, the thing with like 30 days, people may have heard, and you may see this if you're online, like the 21 day,
Hmm.
thing, the 21-day reset or research shows that if you do something for 21 days, you do something for that amount of time or 30, um, that's when your brain starts really kind of making some of those new connections. In addiction treatment, we talk about like 90 days being a milestone. That's another huge leap and really important point
Hmm.
of time where your mind and body start healing to kind of this new level. And so I think if someone is willing to try something. Maybe that's journaling every day for 30 days. Maybe that's doing my favorite 477 breathing or box breathing for 30 days. Maybe that's texting a friend, calling someone, going for a walk trying a new rhythm, building a new
Hmm.
rhythm into your life and see what happens. See what
Yeah.
happens after that period of time. Now, again, I think it's always important to like have this disclaimer that a lot of times we're kind of we need an intervention from professional mental health, having a professional mental health provider do like an assessment, for example,
Yeah.
or we may need a higher level of care. But no matter where we're at, I think trying some new rhythms and seeing what happens after that period of time. I don't know. I would love to hear about it. So you can find me online and send me a message or let me know how that goes. But the research shows that it can drastically change our lives
Yeah.
and help us to kind of build in new healthy patterns.
Yeah. I love that. I love that word rhythm, by the way. It just sounds so, I don't know, integrative into your system,
Mm.
like into your soul. I love that.
I I just want to lay on a beach and like I just feel like the waves rhythm. Like that's what
Yeah.
I see waves when I say that word
Yeah,
sometimes. So
that's
yeah.
beautiful. I love that. I love that. So, what would one piece of advice be to your younger self that would have maybe helped you a little more with your anxiety?
Sure. Oh, makes me emotional. Yeah, because she was hurting. Woo! She had a really bad her eyebrows. I don't know if you remember the early 2000s. I'm probably
Yeah.
older than you, but
No, you're not.
I barely have them now because we used to pluck them so thin. So along with like, girl, just grow your eyebrows out. Trust me, you'll really appreciate it in 26 years. Um,
Mhm.
Aside from that, I would just tell her that you don't have to live like this. Like, you know. We don't. And that it's possible to change and that you're not the only one.
Yeah.
So I would love to just sit down and have a cup of coffee with her and tell her to quit smoking. Um, but yeah, aside from the eyebrows and maybe my past bad habits, just let her know it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And if you're listening, or I just maybe you're not the one who's struggling with anxiety, but maybe it's a loved one. Like
Mhm.
pass that message forward because it can just be so encouraging when we hear that, that we're not
Mhm.
alone and that things can get better.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. I needed to hear that because I do have people that struggle with this currently, and definitely, if you're listening and you heard that, I hope you take that to heart. You're not alone, and you're not broken, and you're not, all the things that you think in your mind that you are. This is just something that you need to address because you're struggling with it, and it can be overcome, right? You can manage it. So yeah, thank you for that. So is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to talk about? I know you have other books. I have not read them, but I know you're an author of several books, and I love the work that you do in the recovery community. So I would definitely post that in the show notes and how people can reach
Thank
out to
you.
you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would just say again, check out recovery.com. I
Okay.
mean, it's an amazing resource. I do have other books,
Yeah.
um, but check out When Anxiety Won't Let Go. And I
Okay.
think, the positive news is it will and it can let go.
Yeah.
So hopefully folks will be encouraged by that. But yeah, I would love to hear from people. And if you feel like you need more support, recovery.com is a great place to check out.
That's perfect. And where can they find this book? I mean, it was sent to me, so I can't honestly say, but where can they
Yeah.
find this?
I mean, you can find When Anxiety Won't Let Go really anywhere you buy books. So, maybe
Okay.
that's the Amazon, maybe it's, you can request it from your local bookstore. So really wherever you buy books, you should be able to pick up a copy.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. I have one last question for you because I think one thing that we're missing in our lives, and for most people, especially if you are struggling with anxiety, um, what is something currently in your life that is bringing you joy?
Mm. Oh, I love that. Well, so we got a new puppy. And our puppy is 5 months old. Her name's
Oh,
Hilda. She's just a doll. But I think what she's reminding me is just
oh,
the importance of connecting offline. And certainly that is helpful for anxiety. So I'm a writer, I'm an editor. I do a lot of things where I'm at right now, which is my home
mhm.
office. And she's really encouraging me to get out and walk around our neighborhood and just connect with people more. And so yeah, connecting in person in real life, IRL, as the youth say, maybe not anymore, but in real life is definitely bringing me joy today.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. And what kind of puppy?
German Shepherd. So
Oh,
she's got
so
these
cute.
like giant ears. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's a
So
sweetie.
sweet. Yeah. If puppies bring joy any time of the day. So thank
They
you.
do.
Well,
Hmm.
Caroline, thank you so much for sharing with us. And it truly encouraged people to go out and get this book. And even if you aren't struggling, if you know someone who struggles, or just to have some language or skills behind you to be that person that someone turns to, maybe. So I just thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom with us. And yeah, I look forward to reading some of your other books.
So thank you. Well, let me know. I'd love to send you
Yeah,
some.
for sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for joining me today on another episode of Becoming Sound. If this episode resonated with you in some way, please share it with someone you care about. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It helps to get this information out to more people who may need it. If you have a sec, I would love a follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. While you're there, hit the 5-star rating and give me a review. When you're scrolling, follow me on my social platforms, and I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Have a fabulous day, lots of love and gratitude from me. Please note, The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Becoming Sound podcast series are solely those of the individuals involved. The content of this podcast is to educate, inform, and for entertainment purposes only. This podcast series and the content presented does not constitute for medical or other professional advice or services. If you are in crisis or in need of help, please contact your medical or professional provider.